Welcome to the Chelsea Flower Show, coming live from my garden. I thought if you weren't going to, of course nobody's going to Chelsea this year, and I thought it might be a bit of fun to have a look at my garden, and then you ought to post a picture of your garden on my page and we can compare notes and have a virtual tour of Chelsea. So do let me know if you're watching and leave me a comment. So I'm going to grab the camera and come this way. Now the best bit in our garden at the moment are the peonies, so I'm going to leave those for later, leave you hanging along. So good morning Farah, lovely to see you here, and good morning Georgia as well. So I am not the gardener, and the gardener is having a well-earned rest and didn't want to be interviewed for this short slot, but I feel that over the years I have been, by osmosis, I have learnt loads about the garden. Joan is just saying that she's watched the mindfulness video I posted on YouTube this morning about my peonies. So the peonies are just behind me, Joan, so we're going to come to that right at the end. Conscious you'll notice that I'm on a slant here because our garden goes on a very, very slight rise. So our patio area is a little bit sunken down, and above it we've got a pergola covered with grapevines and clematis, so it gives lots and lots of shade in our south-facing garden. Now the garden has been designed for wildlife, very wildlife friendly, and we don't have an awful lot of cut flowers. So as I go around, I will try to explain to you what we've got. And you'll discover as well, there's nothing really distinct in the garden. I think the watchword for the garden is ground cover and wildlife friendliness. But we do have some new additions to the garden this year. And can you see I don't know where to point, the alliums? 50 bulbs of alliums were pointed this year, and they've been scattered throughout the garden, and they're giving a nice structural effect. And as I look down, see, this is what I'm having to work with. When I try and do my flower arranging, there's nothing particularly distinct. So we've got the gorgeous alliums. I've not been picking those this year because I'm sure that my husband has earmarked and plotted where they all are. They, as you come down, we have a lawn here. My husband is berating the fact that the lawn seed now is just the solid grass. Apparently in the old days it used to include clover in the front garden. He's actually planted clover in our front lawn because it's got, nitrogen enriching qualities. I don't quite know about the science. So he does like to keep a nice lawn, but it's not ultra trimmed and ultra manicured, but it does get a regular hoovering, as he calls it, when he gets out with the lawnmower. So as I bring you down here, we have got lots of forget-me-nots. You can see the little blue everywhere, the forget-me-nots, and they are about to be pulled out. They're getting very leggy, so they're going to come out, and then through the forget-me-nots, I'm not sure whether you can see, I've got the camera in the wrong place. We've got some Sweet Williams. I love Sweet Williams. And I quite like these ones because I don't like them when they're double coloured. I prefer them to be single colour. So this is white with a flash of pink at the throat, and there's some slightly darker ones over here. So they're quite calm colours, and I think they work really well. And you can see how luminous they are as well. The same principles that apply to your flower arranging apply to the gardening, that the white flowers do show up more. And then we have native geraniums. So my husband tries to plant native species so that they're good for our wildlife. So as much as I like the really fashionable dahlias with the really full crinkled heads, he prefers a single dahlia because they are better for the wildlife. So good morning, Kath, and good morning, Denise, as well, because the bees can get easily to the nectar. When the flowers are too frilly, the bees can't get to the nectar. And here we have a Cranesbill Geranium. So this is a native geranium. It's not the fancy pelargonium that you get, the bright scarlet varieties, and it's got these lovely leaves, and it's these leaves and the bushiness which are providing the ground cover in order that he doesn't need to weed, although we do have lots and lots of bindweed in the garden, which is a bit of a bind. So the hedge we got here when we moved in, the garden was open to our neighbours. Oops. And instead of putting up a solid garden fence, we've had a lattice fence put up. And now over the years that has grown up. So we've got ivy near the garden, we've got some shrubby honeysuckle, there's choicea here, so loads of ivy, we've got roses rambling through it, we've got jasmine coming through it, we've got a cotinus a bit further up, so it's giving a really good hedge-like experience. And Joan is saying, good morning everybody, it's going to be a really warm day today. Wasn't it hot yesterday? I went out for my daily walk and had to have a lie down afterwards, it was really, really warm. So we've got foxgloves in the garden, so this is my husband's latest challenge. I'm not sure whether I can, it's very small. Is it even in shot? Here it is. Foxglove there, and that's the little pockets, and you can see the stripes to attract the pollinators down into there. So my husband is particularly proud of that at the moment. They're not so successful in our garden is the hydrangea. We don't seem to do very well with that at all, and this one is looking all shriveled, but look at that new growth on there with the allium. That's quite a thick stemmed allium there. And my husband calls these pot marigolds. I don't think they're pot marigolds, but I don't like to disagree with him. They're calendula, and normally you see those as a bright orange. I'll show you over here without a bright orange flower. But these ones seem to be quite delicate shading on them, a little bit of a look of a zinnia to them. So that all looking lovely. And then we have a lesser spotted swing ball pole over here, which seems to be in the back of all the videos I do in the garden lately, but it's providing a great source of exercise for a child. So it's a family friendly garden. We don't have our washing line out, that gets put away every time, but I'm quite pleased to see that the swing ball pole has taken pride of place in the garden. So we'll have to see how long the Wi-Fi connection lasts from out of the garden. So you can see it's not the prettiest of gardens, it's not the nicest of gardens, but it does give my husband a huge amount of pleasure. So on the back here we have some Crocosmia or Montbretia. So that's comes out in the later summer, so it's lovely sword-shaped leaves. We've got a different variety of native geranium here. Don't tell, I've just picked a small flower there, so really, really delicate there. And we have some herbs as well. This is lemon balm, so this is really great. I'm into making my herbal teas at the moment. I have got mint by the back door, and fennel I've made a tea with, and this makes a nice fresh tea as well. That smells absolutely gorgeous. So George is saying how much she loves it. So George, you're going to have to share the video and might become famous. I'm looking forward to becoming viral one day in the nicest possible way, but it hasn't happened yet. So it is nice to be out in the garden, and especially we have lots of birds in our garden, and it's just nice to be out in the quiet of the day. So I do hope I'm not annoying my neighbours by giving a running commentary of what we're doing, but I can hear lots of birds and I can see a few as well. We've got a collared dove sitting on the top of the roof. We've actually got some sparrows nesting in the garden as well. And Kath's saying she loves lemon balm, it seeds everywhere. I would say, Kath, that nothing in our garden seeds everywhere because we've got so much ground cover. There's no light and water getting to the ground, so it's suppressing the weeds, but it's also suppressing the seeds as well. So we do have a few patches, but it certainly hasn't taken over. And I shall say good morning to Natalie as well. See if I can give you a wave, Natalie. Oops. And see if I can keep up to date with the comments. When you just said viral, hyacinth bouquet. Georgie, you're off my Christmas card list now. You're off my Christmas card. I was probably saying viral, actually, in the style of my friend Natalie, who is also watching. So, yes, there you go. So insult's over. So come along. The grass has got still got loads of dew on it, so I'm getting wet knees when I bend down. And what I have got here to show you, I'm not quite sure. Can you? Yes, you can see it here. This is Solomon's seal, so it's just coming to the end of its life. It's a spring flower, and it's really great to bring it indoors because it almost looks tropical. a woodland flower there, and I have used it in arrangements before when I pinch off the leaves, so it's just the little sort of bells that you see. And then the yellow here, it's magic carpet. So you can see that the idea is colour, form and texture that we use in flower arranging is also the same principles that you use in gardening. And with Kath watching, with her fabrics, she'll be thinking about the same things as well. So it's sort of consistent principles across all the creative activities. And good morning to Mary as well. And then over in the back here, I will fetch one of these leaves. These are flower arranging, a real favourite, and I can pick them because they're about to go over as well. So that's Arum Pictum Italicum, which is beloved of flower arrangers everywhere. I personally find it looks really, really beautiful. Look, it looks like it's a crazy match to my top there. But I think the leaves are really floppy, so it is quite a striking greenery, and again looks quite tropical. But I always find the leaves are just too squishy and squashy, and they get damaged really easily. Now this is a trick I've learned from my husband, that when you're doing a little bit of weeding, a little bit of deadheading, you don't need to walk as far as the compost heap. What you do is you just bury it in a bush. And he does the same thing with bananas as well. It's the potassium in the bananas are really nutritious as well. So you will find banana skins around the garden as well. So, and Kath is saying that's gorgeous. I think she's referring to the leaf, not how I'm looking today. So let's come around a little bit. I will say that my husband won't tell you this, but he has won a couple of awards for his garden. He's won 2 wildlife competitions. This is probably before my daughter was born, so it's more than 12 years ago, and got 2 golds. And then last year he entered a competition as well, the Kent Wildlife Trust competition, and he won't display his certificate because he only got to silver gilt, and I think he was a little bit disappointed. But one of the things, good morning Jan, that he did plant, we had a lady came round and gave advice on the garden, and one thing she did suggest that we didn't have enough blossoms throughout the year for nectar, so she suggested that we planted Mahonia, which is it looks like an ivy leaf, but it's got an acid yellow flower. So my husband has actually planted some of those because obviously he's hoping to get a gold next year. I think he'll enter again there, and that's the Mahonia. I don't like it at all. It's got flat prickly leaves and I just don't like the flowers on it, but it's good for wildlife because it's got it's flowering earlier in the season when there's not much else around. We've got a bit of a dead patch here I've been standing in front of. That was our Cotoneaster. No, it's a Cotoneaster Catinus. It's Catinus Crocosmia, which is a little purple leaf. And it's a great colour. It's a smoke bush and it has plumes of delicate flowers in the summertime. But again, if you're into flower arranging, the leaf, our particular variety, the leaves are too big. You can get a much smaller variety. So that will, there's a bit of deadness going on there, and the hope is it'll all blossom out. Now what I should say as well, we've got a south-facing garden, and this is the westerly aspect. Oops, I don't think you can see. But all our flowers on this hedge flower on our neighbour's side because they get the west-facing sun. So all our honeysuckle is next door, and all our lovely climbing roses, they all flower next door. So lucky we've got nice neighbours. They come and look after our chickens and our rabbits while we're away, and in return they get all the beauty of all our flowers. So Joan is asking a question. Where do you buy all these lovely flowers and foliages? Do you have a list of what you have in your garden? I don't have a list of what's in my garden, and actually so can you hear me now? I've taken the mic cable out. You're frozen now too? Am I still frozen? Is it coming back? I have to rely on you. I was trying to finish. Is that okay now? Yes. No, this doesn't help me. Can you please write in complete English sentences? Otherwise I haven't got a clue. Oh, you're back, you're back. So now I've given up with my tripod. Oh, and I've given up with my microphone. I was trying to be all flash so I was really pleased with my opening shot in the first video. If you noticed, I ran away from my camera really quickly so I could walk back into scene. I'm practicing my editing skills. No sound coming. No sound coming. You must have switched your mic off or damaged its back. Yes, I don't know. Georgia said I do tend to step on my mic and quite often detach the cable, but it was all complete, so I don't know what it was, or whether it was just that point in the garden where my Wi-Fi doesn't reach quite so much. So we'll see how far we can get. I'm not going to recap. The first bit was really, really good. I wanted to show you the pond. So perhaps I won't come up too far. See the bench there? So a bit of peculiar position for the bench. It used to run across the back of the garden here, so you could look back at the house. But it's next to the pond, and my husband likes sitting there because he can admire what's going on. So we have newts in the pond, and we have tadpoles. I don't think the tadpoles have been quite so good this year, and he would quite like toads. So if you know of any toad spawn lately, that would be really great. He's got loads of comfrey here. It's got a special number name, and I can see a bee buzzing. So that's about as far as my wildlife interest goes there. So it gets a lovely sunshine this morning, and we've got here a bit of native hedge. I don't know if you can see that. I'm conscious of the fact I'm now standing next to the pond. One false move and I could be in there. But this bit of hedge, see, oh, that's a good thing. I'll go over my head. See that nice bit of hedge there? Native hedgerow. So, you know, if you live in, wherever you live, don't plant conifer hedges. They're ugly, they grow too fast. This native hedge grew up, you know, it took 5 years before it looked like a hedge, perhaps a little bit longer, but it's just so much better for the wildlife. So it's got a mix of, what's it got in there? I can see holly, I can see hazel, I can see hawthorn. It's probably got a bit of blackthorn in it. It's probably got a bit of hornbeam, a bit of beech, something like that. But just something that is green and lots of varieties all in together. And if you're new to hedge laying, planting, you're supposed to plant it at an angle and then plant it the other way. I know, Kath, should I do it as a comedy fall in? The thing is, it really stinks, and then perhaps I would really go viral then. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? And then the bit at the back of the garden, I'm not even going to try going in the back of the garden. It's not, we have quite we live in town, so we've just got a, you know, a town garden, but actually it's, I suppose it's larger for a town garden than many town gardens, especially if you live in a small Victorian street. You've only got a yard, but it isn't a huge garden. But it is a bit bigger perhaps than most, but it does go off into the distance, goes to a point at the end. And I don't know if you can see, is that a silver birch tree there and a silver birch tree there? So they were planted, we've lived here for 20 years, 23 years, they were planted pretty much as soon as we came in. And it's a woodland glade, and we have a hammock that is strung up between the two trees. You can't see it because it has to come in every night because we're not allowed to leave it out, because those are the rules apparently of having a hammock. Damages the canvas. And this is the wildlife feeding station. So I go up, you may have seen, if you've been following me for a while, my husband did a video for me about his bird feeders one Christmas, and he's never repeated the experience. I did ask him last night whether he'd like to be interviewed for my Chelsea Flower Show virtual tour, and he declined. Bad sport. So here I am publicising his garden, and across the back there, I don't quite know how to do my camera angles there. I've got a shed. No, there's no eye about it. There is a garden shed, and it's full of tools, and an open side shed, and sometimes I use the open side sheds to do videos in. That's about, can't get my finger to do, it's sort of, no it's not this. How can I knock this there? Ish. It's over that way there, anyway. And then we have some wisteria growing in. Do I chance it by coming round a bit? I know. The thing is, though, I have interviewed my husband before, and Georgia, you know my husband very well. You cannot get a word in edgeways, and I had to tell him at the beginning of my interview, Phil, this is my channel, okay? I'm interviewing you. And he just worked out in his mind what he wanted to say, and he just went for it. And he just carried on and on and on and on. So it was quite good for comedy gold, because I was trying to interrupt, of course, being polite, because I was live on film, you know, with whole 6 people watching. But he doesn't like to follow a script. Not that I was wanting to script him, but I wanted to know that it was my channel, and I was the star of the show, and it wasn't him, but he wasn't having any of that. You never know, he may be inclined to do it, but he doesn't really like to. He's not on social media, and he doesn't like it really. So we're back. So welcome back, Farah and Jan. I don't quite know what happened with my sound there, but I did get a couple of messages saying my broadcast had been interrupted. I thought it was because the BBC had found me, and they were going to send a helicopter down so I could be on Good Morning, whatever it is that's on in the morning time. So my arm is now aching because you're not on the tripod anymore, and I've I might need to do my exercise class this morning, getting lots of strength in there. But I'm showing you, am I trying to show you the wisteria that's coming over from our other neighbour's garden. Perhaps if I can turn that, oh God, my arm is really aching. And then we've got a little bit of an ugly part of the garden. I don't know if I can do that actually. So we've got chickens. So we have chickens that are chickeny over here. They are now hidden from the garden by this, for the view from the kitchen window, by this huge laurel hedge. And it's not huge, it just happens to be a bit of laurel. And again, if you're flower arranging, laurel is useless for flower arranging unless you're doing church flowers. It's too big. In a normal vase it's just too big, and at this time of the year anyway, in your garden greenery, it's all too soft. You have to wait till it's hardened off, and probably in the UK your greenery won't harden off until the end of June, so it'll flop in a vase, so don't be put off. Our chickens are lovely. I have nothing to do with the wildlife in our garden, with the animals. I'm quite happy to bake with the eggs. Sometimes I do deign to walk off and find an egg when I've got a recipe and I'm one egg short. But it's my husband who really enjoys it. So as a child, he had a big allotment. His dad had a big allotment, and they kept chickens and rabbits, and he's been used to lopping them off. He doesn't enjoy that, but he has dispatched a few chickens as need be. But this is his domain. I do nothing but swan around, and I don't even pretend I've got anything to do with it. I'm quite happy to cook with the eggs, but I'm not into looking. The animal husbandry is not on one of my list of things to do. So if you, oops, are we going again? So the chickens are great. They do eat a lot. We wanted to have them free range originally, and they were originally free range, but they absolutely damage your garden. So now they are penned in a really huge pen. So my husband's really into animal welfare. The pen is huge, and he lets them out. We have a little, he sort of puts a makeshift gate up in that gap there, and it's almost like he's got a flock of sheep, because he'll let the chickens out for their run, and the dog has to stay indoors, and the chickens do have free range, but only at the end of the garden where the bird feeding station is. So that's a whole other subject, the bird feeding station. The birds get fed all year round, and I thought one year Christmas, wouldn't it be nice to do something on my channel with homemade fat balls and getting in touch with nature? And he just said it's not worth doing it. You just need to buy all these suet balls, and he buys them by the bucket load, and here I was trying to carve out oranges and make it all look really pretty. So that's where the animal husbandry takes place. And then coming down, the cherry tree. If you follow me on my YouTube channel, you'll see me do a YouTube video about that, about how that was massacred, but it gets too big and it costs too much shade on the garden. I know, wouldn't that be awful though? Just imagine he might be more popular than me. That would be absolutely awful. Anyway, I shall tell him that you're all demanding that he does an interview. He might be up for it. He did pose naked in the garden once for World Naked Gardening Day, so you never know, he might be up for it. So anyway, that's the tree. That'll all grow back, so sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind, and he likes to keep that in like a bubble, quite a confined space. Kath, it's an awful job, Kath. I don't do anything in the garden, but I have to help out with the horrible jobs. I think we do it every few years, probably 3 or 4 years, but we did it this year. I say we, actually I didn't do it, Phil did it this year, but the year before, and you think, oh, my tree just needs trimming, and then you've got to get the long handled loppers out, and then you've got to stand on a ladder, and the bits you think were just like in a metre or so long, turns out they're 3 or 4 metres long, so it's just absolutely a nightmare. I think you just got to keep on top of all these jobs. And then the other problem we have is we've got no side access to the house, so we have to get rid of all the debris and hide it in the garden. So we've got a dead hedge at the top where we lay all the branches down in a very neat fashion. George is saying, now she's got hyacinths became my mind. That's all I can hear when I'm laughing and emphasising. Oh, Georgia, but she was a really famous actress, wasn't she? So I'm going to take it as a huge, I could either be insulted or take it as a huge compliment. So I'm going compliment. It's because of my Oxfordshire English vowels, you see. I speak proper, unlike you. So there we go. So we come round, and then we have an aviary as well. So the bird song you hear in our garden isn't all natural bird song. We have canaries. We did have zebra finches and also budgies. I think the budgies might have eaten the legs off the zebra finches. Anyway, we've only got left with Jimmy. All our canaries are called Jimmy. Can you see Jimmy? Bright yellow there. So Jimmy tweets a lot. Oh, I've missed it. There he is. Say hello, Jimmy. Hello, Jimmy. So that's there. And then next to that, we've got a rather unsightly rabbit hutch there. So this is a deluxe 2-storey rabbit hutch built beyond... I know you speak properly, Georgia. I'm pulling your leg. If you're going to Hyacinth Bouquet, I shall talk about your regional accent. So that's a 2-storey rabbit hutch. So don't get my husband on the subject of the rabbit hutches you find in pet stores. He is not impressed at all. So we've actually now got a couple of rescue hedgehogs, and thank you. Kath says she's in love with the whole of my garden. And Farah's saying this is getting even more hilarious as we go around the piglets. Actually, at one stage he wanted a pygmy goat, and he gets his ideas, and I have to be the ultimate voice of reason, saying we're just not getting a pygmy goat. But that was on the cards, and then we had a child, so I think that's replaced the need for a pygmy goat. So we have a rabbit hutch, and again I think this rabbit hutch was more for my husband's pleasure than it was for my daughter's. But anyway, the rabbits eventually died. I think Mr. Fox got to them. There was a bit of a massacre going on, so it's all a bit knocked together and a bit but this has become the sanctuary for 2 hedgehogs. I think one of them has now, we had to keep them locked in for 2 weeks, and then the door is open now and they come and go as they please. I'm not sure whether he's still feeding them, but he says definitely one of them has come back to eat, so we're hoping to have no slug problem this year. Kathy. I'm comparing my child to a goat. Luckily, she can't hear me and she's not on social media, so that's fine, isn't it? What stays between you and me, Kathy, stays between us. So the last thing I've got to show you, we do have one part in our menagerie, and we have a tortoise. Oh look, she's out, and it's the rules. I'm going to turn that around because you don't want to be looking in my kitchen window. So tortoise. This is Frida, because it's the rule that every tortoise has to be called Frida. And if Ev's watching, this is Jordan. We have officially renamed her. So she's got a little run there. And the tortoise eats better than we do. So all our kitchen scraps, I think she had melon yesterday, she likes cucumber and strawberry ends and all sorts of things like that. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my tour of the garden for Chelsea Flower Show. So I think there's loads and loads of videos on the RHS website, so you can have a look at stuff. Perhaps you ought to, and compare my professional presenting style with that of the famous people. So there we go, there's my garden. So I'm a flower arranger, I'm a trained florist, I'm trained to teach, and there's absolutely no flowers in my garden at all. So there we go. Shall I do a bit of PR at the end? That's the, what's it called? And, oh, peonies. So now I'm going to show you the peonies, but before we go, this bit here, this is I said to Phil, it's like a seaside here, with the glaucous lamb's ear stachys and the white sweet williams and the blue with the forget-me-not coming through. Another hydrangea isn't really enjoying it. But did you know I run flower arranging classes on Zoom every Tuesday morning? You really ought to sign up. If you don't fancy coming to class, check out the shop page on my website, which is Julie Davis flowerworkshops.co.uk, and you can download flower arranging classes. So here they go. Coral Charm. So this is where floristry met gardening. These were massively, they're still fashionable peonies, but Coral Charm was massively fashionable a couple of years ago, and my husband liked the flowers that I bought, the cut flowers that I bought, that he went off and bought 3 plants, and I think that's the first time ever I've ever managed to influence him in anything that is garden related. They're all pointing in one direction. One Direction, they're going to reform apparently, One Direction, and they're facing the south-facing sun, so you can't get a really good view of them because I'd have to show you the really naff wall on the side of my kitchen. So there we have, oh, I've just broken something. There'll be no homegrown wine for us this year, so I'm probably going to leave it there. I might give you one more flash of my face before I go. Oh, so there we have it. So what do you reckon? BBC Presenter of the Year? Do you think I'm going to have my own podcast? Do you think my YouTube channel will go viral? I've got 358 subscribers. I need to have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And then I can take advertising and then I might earn some money. So that's all for me for now. Sorry it was a two-parter. I'll go back and delete the duff individual bits in the middle. I think there was a random film going on in the middle. So that's it. I'm rambling now. So I hope you have a good day. I hope you enjoy the TV coverage of my gardener's world. And I can feel Monty Don shaking his boots. I lock the dog in. I could have had my own version of Nigel, R.I.P. Nigel, wagging in the background. Yes, thank you. And thank you very much for all your support, ladies and gents. And I will see you again next time. Join my free Facebook group, Flower Start World. You can search for it. There's a longer title afterwards. It's too long to remember. So it'd be lovely to have you there. That's normally where I do my Facebook Lives. But I thought, pandemic, it's special, you know, bit of community outreach. There you go. Waffle, waffle, waffle. Breakfast time.